everyone, and welcome to the strange and bizarre world of Ghana movie posters. And I mean, these are really bizarre, and not just bizarre like whatever is trending on TikTok, although people eating emojis, that still haunts me at night. But these posters, okay, they're hand-painted horror, sometimes romantic comedy, but before we do anything, a quick warning. If you're sensitive to violence or gore, don't watch this video. Just put it on mute and let it play through, and maybe like and subscribe because that helps appease the algorithm gods and allows me to make more of these videos that you don't want to watch. So if you are not sensitive to violence or gore, I think we will be getting along great though. So where do these hyper bizarre movie posters originate from? Okay, so here is the basic rundown. In the 80s and 90s, the Ghanaian government did not allow a lot of things, and one of those things was movies. So in order to see a movie, you had to go to a mobile cinema unit, which consisted of a group of entrepreneurial-minded folks that drove from city to city with a projector, a VCR, and a smuggled copy of whatever movie they could get their hands on. But there was a big problem. How do you advertise? Printing presses were not allowed, and even if they were, they can't really advertise things that they're breaking the law to do, right? So local artists were recruited and sewed together cornflower sacks into giant canvases and hand-painted what every poster is meant to do: get butts into seats. And nothing gets butts into seats more like these outlandish, bizarre, madness-inspired freak shows that these posters promised. And so without further ado, let's jump into some of the greatest hits and misses of the golden age of Ghana movie posters. We'll start with the biggies, okay? Jurassic Park. And I don't know if I have words for this one. They take a very iconic, sexy shot of Jeff Goldblum, and they really do not do it justice by having Sam Neill leaning on him like he is the Triceratops in the movie, who is also responsible for the big pile of shit that is featured prominently behind them. And I also don't know why the pterodactyl has killed Dr. Hammond, but for whatever reason he's firing a gun as he's dying, although he didn't actually die in the film, but he did die in the book. And the T-Rex having a prehensile tongue with the lawyer on the toilet, I don't know what's happening. You'll see a theme of guns recurring, though. Just pay attention to this, okay? Now we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I will acquiesce does actually have a proper turtle in it, but for whatever reason, it also prominently features Rawhead Rex. Or at least I think that's Rawhead Rex. But regardless of whether it is or isn't, this character is not in any of the movies or even the entire franchise. Now, one thing I noticed about Ghana movie poster art is that they love guns, beheadings, and a lack of apprehension in what I would say is arguably homoerotic subject matter. So let's take Fight Club, for example. It has a young man who is burrowing his face into the man boobs of the Meatloaf character, and at the bottom there are several poorly rendered characters, including Brad Pitt, who ironically is not as chiseled as he should be, and even has Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Picture Show. It raises questions. And next we have Perfect, which I'm assuming is a version of Staying Alive, the 1983 sequel to Saturday Night Fever, where John Travolta dances around in skimpy outfits covered in body oil. And as far as I'm concerned, this poster is absolutely on point when it comes to echoing that film's fabulous cosmic gayosity. Now we're going to veer into what I call what the f*** territory. And let's start with this poster of the romantic comedy Moonstruck. It takes Cher's iconic pose for the US poster release and adds a giant snake that appears to be both venomous and large enough to strangle someone to death. But that one pales in comparison to Space Jam. First off, why does Michael Jordan have a gun? Second, why is he suddenly missing knee bones? And finally, what the hell is the cartoon fox badger next to him? I don't recall Warner Brothers being that litigious that they would sue over a misuse of a cartoon character on an already unauthorized poster and have it be not a problem that it inexplicably has a violent take on a series that's clearly meant for kids. And, speaking of guns, check out the artwork for Desperately Seeking Susan, which we all know is a movie about Madonna and Rosanna Arquette shooting everyone they can until they find Susan. The next poster art for Friends is a very foggy amalgamation of a promo poster that somehow mixes Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers from the Scream series, shooting Joey in the head while a shirtless Bruce Lee kind of looks on in horror. And it really begs the question, how much LSD did these people take before they did this artwork? I'm just wondering. But the next one is so disturbing. I swear, this one had to be a commission because it's so disturbing and out of left field. It's left me rattled. This version of Mrs. Doubtfire, where she is just some sort of sinister-looking ninja that is just murdering what looks to appear to be a very friendly, nice young man. And then there's a random guy kind of coming out of the floor and grabbing her boot. I don't know. That's probably the person who commissioned it. It's really unique in a dark way that these Ghana film posters can be. So it makes sense to finish out what I think are the most iconic ones, which are, of course, the horror movie posters. And we're going to start with the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which is, this one's pretty much on point. Not the best rendering of the characters, but it has the gist of what is the more memorable parts of the movie. Although I don't recall Patricia Arquette having a gun as she's being swallowed by the Freddy snake. It just doesn't really ring a bell. Next we have Friday the 13th, The New Blood, which is a poster for a, this poster is way more violent than the film could ever have been. In fact, the film is popularly known for being trimmed heavily by the MPAA and is considered one of the weaker entries of the series considering the amounts of violence in it, which is ironic because this poster is truly out of this world insane when it comes to violence. I mean, I think it's just kind of it's madness. Honorable mention to the poster artwork for Jason Takes Manhunty. I think they meant Manhattan. You gotta love a good typo. And another honorable mention would go to The Live, which is actually supposed to be They Live. But interestingly enough, other than that, it would not be that bad of a poster. I mean, it's actually pretty much on point. This next one for Cujo is just baffling. I don't quite get it. The Saint Bernard in the film is replaced by this giant Cocker Spaniel that's rather stoic looking, and then instead of D. Wallace Stone, we have a geisha hybrid / Marilyn Manson. The only thing creepy in this poster is the way the child is staring at us. It's truly ghoulish. Now, I will say this Child's Play poster, I know it's inspired by the Child's Play 2 artwork, but man, as terrifying as Chucky was for me at 8 years old, this one takes the cake. It's just as freakadeek. Next, we have two versions of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, this first one is way more brutal than the actual film itself, but it also misspells the word massacre. But look, I get it. These people don't speak, English as their first language. In massacre is a difficult word for people to spell anyway. But the way they wrote very, very brutal, don't miss this one. It's just interesting that they managed to kind of skip over that one. And also, none of the stuff that you're seeing in this poster happens in the movie. In fact, none of these characters that you see in the poster are even in the movie. Honestly, Leatherface, it looks like Gene Simmons as far as I'm concerned. The next version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is slightly more on point, and I mean that very loosely because this time they call it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They got massacre right this time, but this time they messed up Texas. But at least the characters are being portrayed here like they are in the film. I mean, they're not the best representations of the actual characters go as far as artistic finesse. But if you ignore the piles of heads of the random people who are not in the movie, you can actually see Leatherface there gripping onto the character Pam, not looking very Pammy. And in the background, I find this comical, is Sally Hardesty firing a gun. I guess she did not go insane like her character did in the first movie, and she is out for revenge. And what's kind of messed up is that I think they actually did that for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel where they had Sally come back, but it wasn't Marilyn Burns. It was a disaster. Less said about it, the better from what I understand. The next one, I think this one really is actually pretty stellar. The artwork for The Thing. This poster is almost completely on point, except for the fact that it replaces Kurt Russell for the actor who was in The Professional, that movie about a sniper. I don't quite get where they made that mistake. But, what can you do? This poster for Wrong Turn 2 is interesting because it sort of is a bit of a commentary on African Americans and horror films, because there is that whole notion of black characters being treated in horror as the first ones to die, and I find this poster artwork very subversive because it has a very restrained and almost sensitive point of view that you see of the people who are being tortured here. It's there's something sad about it. You get the impression that they're a mother or a son, or maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend. I don't know. I'm not sure, but you do get a sense of closeness that these two people have died that knew each other. And it is worth mentioning that, again, the actual film itself is so much more violent than anything like this. I mean, we're talking like people's bodies going through giant spinning fans, people getting split in two. This one's just very anachronistic. It's what can I say? It struck me, even though it's not at all what it's supposed to be. Then we have the granddaddy of the entire, I'd say, Ghana horror movie poster series, and I think this one is the one that made me fascinated with them to begin with, and this is the one for Halloween. This artwork for Halloween is okay. There's so much going on here. I don't even know where to start. There is, of course, the headless Michael Myers with an axe. There is the Michael Myers with a chainsaw, both of which are not used in the original film. You have a helicopter airlifting someone out of the Myers house, which is next door, inexplicably, to a giant metropolis, like Batman Gotham City looking place. Then there is the Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode with the tiniest knife I've ever seen. And you also cannot ignore the stunning beer bottle holding corpse that is at the bottom of the screen. I think this one might have been commissioned. I don't know, but even still, there is just something magical about these pieces of artwork, and they are, for all of their, I'd say, all of their, weaknesses, or maybe the amateur nature of them, they're still better than a lot of the photoshopped crap that you see in the American releases. I mean, God bless it. I mean, they airbrush people to the point where they look like they're wax. So while these pieces may not be the most technically sound of all of them out there, I'd say that they're much more interesting to look at than some of the soulless Photoshop garbage that there is out today.